We are live now.
Perfect. Thank you. Great. So, as Alumi mentioned, meeting is being broadcast and recorded, just for your reference. So just make sure you have your cameras on, mute yourself when you're not talking, as usual. So jumping into it, I'd like to call today's meeting of the Active Transportation Advisory Committee to order on 18th of September at 4:32. So before we go any further, the Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognises that we are all treaty people. I'll just do a quick roll call as well, down the list. Vice Chair Malena.
Yes, sir, right here, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor John Young. Don't have the councillor. Adelaide Burkham.
Here.
Thank you. Holly Woodall.
Here.
Thanks, Holly. Alexi Katsanis.
Here.
Thank you. Elizabeth Pugh.
I'm here.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Peter Zimmer.
Present.
Thanks, Peter. Maggie Hope Simpson.
I'm here.
Thanks, Maggie. Roseanne LeBlanc.
I'm here. Hello, everyone.
Thank you. Glenn Babcock. No, Glenn. Right. And Stephanie Johnson Lorette.
Here.
Thanks, Stephanie. Right. Okay, so we'll have some staff and guests joining today. I'll introduce them a little bit later on. But moving through the next sections pretty quickly, the approval of the minutes from our meeting 21st of August. Are there any errors or omissions that anyone would like to flag from the minutes from our last meeting? No. Right. So I'd like to call for a motion that the minutes of our meeting 21st of August 2025 be approved as circulated.
Holly will move.
Thanks, Holly. Anyone to second?
Peter.
Thanks, Peter. So all those in favour that the minutes be approved, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Right. So that motion carries. Minutes are approved. Looking at the approval of the order of business. So Olawumi, were there any additions or deletions from the clerk's office?
Thank you, Chair. Before then, I just want to let you know that Councillor Young is with us now.
Perfect.
Yes. Okay. No any addition to the order of business from the clerk's office.
Great. Thank you, and welcome, Councillor John Young. Are there any other additions that members would like to add to the meeting tonight? I will jump in. There's just a small comment I'd like to make just regarding the McDonald Bridge closure. So I'll bring that up at the end. With that in mind, I'd like to call for a motion that the agenda be approved as circulated and discussed.
I can do that, Elizabeth.
Malena will
Elizabeth.
second. Malena will second.
Malena? Perfect. Thank you. So all those in favour of approving the order of business for tonight, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Perfect. Motion carries. We have no business arising out of the minutes. Are there any committee members that would like to let us know of any conflicts of interest based on tonight's agenda? No. All good. We don't have any consideration of deferred business. Correspondence petitions. Oluwumi, were there any correspondence or petitions received by the clerk's office?
No correspondence of petitions received from the clerk's office.
Thank you. We don't have any presentations. No information to be brought forward. Excellent. So I got through that quickly. Moving into the reports discussions. So first up for today's meeting, we have Erin Eldridge and Garrett Donoghue to talk about the Halifax Urban Greenway extension and active transportation facilities to Point Pleasant Park. So I'd like to welcome Erin and Garrett to take stage.
Thanks, Nathan. I'm Erin Eldridge. I'm a landscape architect with HRM and project manager for this assignment. I have our consultant, Garrett Donoghue, here from Englobe to present you with our concept plans for the project. As Nathan mentioned, the project is quite a mouthful. It's the Halifax Urban Greenway extension and active transportation connections to Point Pleasant Park. This project is proposing to extend the existing Halifax Urban Greenway, which is a multi-use pathway ending at Beaufort and Bellevue Avenue, through the St. Mary's University campus. And we're working closely with SMU on this greenway alignment. In addition to the greenway, we are looking at options to create an active transportation connection from the university to Point Pleasant Park. Englobe has been exploring a number of active transportation routes to make this link. This project will take the designs to a functional planning phase, or 30% design, and both portions of the project will need council approval and budget allocation before moving toward any kind of detailed design or construction. We're hoping to move forward with the detailed design for the Greenway early next year. And with that, I will hand it over to Garrett.
Perfect, thank you. I am going to share my screen here, so if somebody can let me know if that's working.
Yep, that looks good.
Yep.
Thank you kindly. So thank you, Erin, for the little introduction. I have a lot of slides in this presentation. I'm hoping they were circulated to you. There's too much to go through in kind of 10 to 15 minutes. So what I'm going to do is skip through pretty quickly, and then if you have any questions or want to revisit something, we can always back up at the end to get questions and answers as you guys do your roll call. So without further ado, I wanted to just give you a quick overview of the project, kind of where it's situated, then talk about where this project is sitting as kind of next steps of where we're taking it. And then the two main pieces that I wanted to talk about are the evaluation framework that we'll be using and what the options are that we'll be evaluating. So that's where we'll spend the bulk of our time. So just to give you kind of a quick overview, I have a picture here, the south end of the Halifax Peninsula. So we have Point Pleasant Park right at the bottom end, and then the CN rail cut above that, and then the SMU campus above that. And our project will connect from Beaufort, where I'm pointing with my little laser pointer there. The end of Beaufort is a little cul-de-sac, so we'll go through the Oaks. There's this wooded area off the end of Beaufort at the south end of the St. Mary's University campus. So that's the main extension of the Halifax Urban Greenway. Will be through that part. That's the part that Erin mentioned we're hoping to take to detailed design after council approval in the new year. And then the remainder of the project is options to get to Point Pleasant Park from the Oaks. And so I have a map here kind of showing 5 different options. 2 of them cross from the Oaks across a new active transportation bridge to get to Pine Hill on the other side of the CN rail track. 2 of the options use the Tower Road connection. There's an existing bridge on Tower Road. And then the 5th option uses Yonge Ave, the existing bridge on Yonge Ave. So we'll go through each of those, kind of the Greenway connection first, and those 5 options at the coming up in the presentation. So where are we at? Right now, we've kind of gone through the existing conditions, kind of analyzed all the technical data, walked around the neighborhood, tried to figure everything out. And we came up with these 5 options that we're going to be evaluating. Those concepts are what we're talking about today. We talked about them with some stakeholder groups, with SMU, with Accessibility Advisory Committee earlier this week. And at the beginning of October, we're going to be doing a few public engagement activities. So there'll be a couple pop-ups, public meeting, and there'll be an Engage Halifax website with a survey as well. So trying to reach everybody at this concept stage to help us evaluate the options, provide feedback on what's working, what's not working, but also provide some feedback on the evaluation framework itself to make sure that the way we're doing that evaluation lines up with the goals of the project and the needs of the community. So what does that evaluation framework look like right now? This is a draft. Please don't try to read it because there's way too much text on here. If you want to spend some time with the presentation afterwards, feel free. I wanted to highlight what is the kind of the heading levels in this table. So there's 8 headings that kind of group together the big buckets of where the evaluation framework is looking. So the first bucket is focused on pedestrian movement and safety. The second bucket is focused on bicycle movement and safety. The third is safety and environmental security. So this is about how it feels. Like, do you feel safe actually using the facilities, both from a lighting perspective and kind of a neighborhood perspective. So that kind of focuses in on that personal feeling of security and safety. There's transit service accommodation. So we do have a transit route that goes down Tower Road. So we need to understand the impacts to transit as part of the options. Vehicle traffic and parking is always a component that comes up whenever we're working on streets and trying to figure out a way to improve active transportation access through existing streets. Health and environment is an important factor. So this covers a few different things. The environmental aspect of it is, impacts to trees, impacts to the natural environment. And then the health aspect of it is looking at access to natural areas, air quality, noise, those sorts of issues as users are on the trails. Public sentiment focuses on what we hear back from the public engagement activities. So not only will that feedback help us to score everything, but it'll also, just the general feeling that people have will be reflected in the evaluation. And then our last bucket is implementation feasibility. So looking at what are the costs, what are the complexities, how difficult will it be to actually build the thing once we look at it in more detail. So that kind of covers off a big bucket of different impacts there. So we'll dive right into the options, starting with the Greenway. I have a picture here standing on Beaufort, kind of in the cul-de-sac, looking north toward Bellevue, and you can see the Halifax Urban Greenway, the existing Greenway that kind of ends at the intersection there. So this is our kind of the north end of our project area where we're starting. We're connecting directly into that facility. So to improve Beaufort, I'll show you a quick cross section here. Today, Beaufort is basically just some parking and a couple of traffic lanes. And so in the proposed future, we would push the curb out a little bit, take away the parking on that tiny little cul-de-sac, and provide the multi-use path extension of the Greenway that exists today through the cul-de-sac and into the woods. So the woods that go in behind or south of SMU campus, I show a few pictures here of what's going on in the woods. There's lots of beaten trails, lots of activity through the woods right now. And so our trail would be providing a nice high quality facility that everybody's able to use through these woods, connecting to the Greenway and then into SMU campus. So there's a couple of different connections that we would make along the way. Greenwood Avenue is one of them. That's the next kind of street over from Beaufort. So we'll be connecting into the sidewalk at the end of Greenwood Avenue. And the next street over is Marlborough. It's a little too difficult to get up to Marlborough. It's really high compared to the elevation of the ground in the woods. So we won't be able to connect to that one. And then as we come along the kind of the edge of the CN rail cut, we'll make a hard turn when we reach Rogers Drive, connect to the sidewalk there, and then head up to Gorsebrook. And Gorsebrook is kind of the end of this segment of the trail. And so I have a picture here of Gorsebrook looking down towards Roby. So you can see a little stone wall that's on the edge of the Oaks building like lawn. And then an asphalt sidewalk is there today. So that asphalt sidewalk we'd be looking at upgrading to a multi-use path. And so this is what that looks like in cross section. Existing Gorsebrook varies a lot. It's privately owned by SNU in this area. So they've got a lot of different parking situations happening in there. So this is just a sample where they have a little bit of parallel parking next to their access road. In this section, we would probably have to eliminate that parallel parking in order to fit in the multi-use path. Next, I'm going to talk about concepts 1 and 2 a little bit together. Both of these concepts use that active transportation bridge that goes from the woods, from the Oaks, crosses the CN rail cut with the new bridge, and then it lands on Pine Hill. So the picture I have on this slide is on Pine Hill looking kind of west down toward Franklin. So there's a big corner here. It's a little bit messy in terms of traffic flow. So we're going to be kind of improving that corner, tightening up the curbs to make it a little bit safer and more clear where different users should be. And then once we get around the corner, this next picture is looking straight down Franklin. So it's a pretty standard, quiet residential street. There's no sidewalks on it today. And the first concept here is to make this street a local street bikeway. So we do a little bit of traffic calming to make sure cars aren't moving too quickly. And we'd also add a sidewalk on the western side of Franklin, or the right-hand side in this picture. And so that's concept number 1. This is it shown in cross section. So I have these kind of red dashed lines to show how the existing curbs line up with the proposed curbs. So we're not really moving around a bunch of infrastructure. We're just kind of redesignating how that street is used and then adding in the sidewalk. There is some kind of trees and shrubbery along that western edge of Franklin that we would be getting into the roots a little bit and into the bushes. So there's going to be some impacts to the natural environment there by adding the sidewalk. And then the second option for Franklin is a multi-use path. So in this option, we're staying on the eastern side of Franklin, so not into those trees or shrubs on the western side, and providing a multi-use path. So this does run down the front of many residential homes, and some of them have kind of landscaping that comes all the way out to the road, even though it's owned by HRM, like that last little bit of gardening that they've done. So that's pretty typical of older areas, but it does impact the kind of the frontage of their home. So we need to be careful and sensitive about how we're approaching this option from that perspective. As we move south along Franklin, we pass by Point Pleasant Drive, and then we get to an area of Franklin where there's kind of a low stone wall that separates Point Pleasant Park from Franklin Drive. So I have a photo here that shows that low stone wall. And then there's an asphalt sidewalk along that eastern side of Franklin next to the park. And so that leads to the picture on the right-hand side here that I have that shows the connection from Franklin up into the park. And at the top of this connection, that's basically the back end of the parking lot that you can access off of Tower Road. So it's a nice straight shot in here. There's already an access road that we would just improve a little bit to make sure it's nice and smooth and accessible. And then cross-section wise, concept number 1 is a local street bikeway. So we're not really changing the infrastructure of the street. We're just redesignating it and then adding that sidewalk. And the multi-use path option is converting that asphalt sidewalk into a multi-use path. I'm going to skip the CAD drawing and go over to concept number 3. This is a multi-use path that follows along Gorsebrook and then follows all along Tower. And so in this picture, I'm on Gorsebrook, kind of looking east toward Tower Road. There's some parked cars and a sidewalk along the left-hand side of this image that's fronting on the SMU campus. That's the space where a multi-use path would fit. So we'd remove one side worth of parking and upgrade that sidewalk to a multi-use path. And I'll skip past the cross section quickly there. And then we get to Tower Road. So I show a picture here of Tower Road. This is looking south toward the entrance to Point Pleasant Park. There's parking on both sides of the road here. So I wanted to highlight how there's a car kind of traveling straight down the middle of the road. Tower Road in this area is very narrow for a road that has parking on both sides. And so there is quite an experience of collisions, striking parked cars. We get complaints from the transit operators that they have to jostle with cars that are approaching them as they pass through this area. So it's a little bit tight. So as part of the Route 3 proposal with the multi-use path, we'd be bringing that multi-use path down the west side of Tower and eliminating parking on both sides and reallocating some of that street space so that it's better for transit and there isn't that kind of conflict between oncoming vehicles. This option has an enormous amount of impact on the street trees and the utilities, so it's not an easy option to implement. That's CAD. I'll skip over. The next one, concept number 4, is Rogers Drive and Tower. So most of Tower is the same area that concept 3 uses, but it's a local street bikeway instead. And then it starts on Rogers. So I have a couple pictures here of Rogers. One is on Rogers looking toward the Oaks and the cul-de-sac end where we would connect in. And then the second picture I have here on the right-hand side is standing on Tower looking into Rogers. And what we see here is Rogers does a really weird dog leg when it connects into Tower. So there is a sidewalk that cuts off that dog leg and comes straight out from Rogers to Tower. And so as part of our project or as part of this concept, to make sure that those users are accommodated as best as we can, we would upgrade that sidewalk piece to a little multi-use path piece so that we're not sending people up the weird dog leg and then back down again. We know that people aren't going to do that if that's the infrastructure we provide. So we'll want to do that upgrade for that cut through piece. So on Rogers, it's pretty straightforward. As we've seen before with some of the local street bikeway stuff, we're not changing the infrastructure at all. We're just redesignating how it's used. I'll skip the CAD. And then on Tower Road, we are changing how the road is used a little bit more significantly here. We're taking parking away from one side. And we're doing that in order to try and resolve that kind of oncoming vehicle conflict that we have today with the kind of narrow cross section that we have. So it provides a little bit more space for cars and buses and bikes to all share the space here. Tower Road is right on the kind of the upper end of what's acceptable in terms of kind of industry guidance around local street bikeways. So we do have to be careful with how we implement it on Tower, provide a little bit of additional traffic calming, and be careful with how we designate things. And then I'm running short on time, so I'll run through the last option here. We take a local street bikeway on Southwood. So Southwood is what's pictured here on the left-hand side. There's parking on one side of the street during the day, both sides overnight. It's a pretty quiet street. We do need to do a little bit of traffic calming there. And then on Yonge Avenue, we have kind of the beautiful boulevard with each direction of traffic separated by a median. And so we'll skip the cross section for Southwood. And there's another picture of Yonge looking south toward Point Pleasant Park with the kind of the bridge in the middle ground and showing some of the parking activity that happens on Yonge today. And then we have 2 options for Yonge. The first one is shown in the middle of this image, and it shows us removing the existing median and providing bike lanes on both sides that are kind of raised and protected bike lanes. And we're keeping parking on one side of the road here. So when we reallocate all that space within the right of way, we save one direction worth of parking. We've kind of held a hard limit on Yonge Ave of the outside curbs because there are just an enormous number of mature trees in the boulevard, so we want to stay out of those trees. And then the second option, we actually keep the median. That median feature is really distinctive for Yonge Avenue and kind of has a cultural value to it. And so we wanted to show an option that preserves that median as well. There's only a few trees and they're a little bit smaller, so it's not so much the environmental aspect here as the kind of that feeling and identity that it provides that we're trying to protect with this option. But in order to save the trees on the outside and save the median on the inside, we need to use the parking space on both sides of the road to provide a bike lane connection. So this connection serves our project, but we're thinking about it a little bit more broadly as well, and the potential of connecting all the way up to South Park, where there's existing bike lanes that look like this in the bottom option. Next one I think is just CAD, so I'll skip that and kick it back to you guys to pepper me with questions. Thanks, I went a few minutes extra, sorry about that.
No, that was great. Thank you. We're doing pretty good for time tonight. Yeah, thank you, Aaron, and thank you, Garrett. That was really informative. So we'll move into discussion questions. So all the committee members will have 5 minutes the first time they speak, and then we'll have time to do a second round where they'll have 3 minutes for any follow-up questions, if that's all right with you, of course. So we'll jump into it. I'll just run through the list. So we're starting with Councillor John Young.
I have nothing to add right now. I'm just reviewing it, so somebody else can go ahead.
No worries. Thank you, Councillor. Next we have Adelaide.
Hello. Thank you. I really liked the presentation. I liked the fact that you guys are trying to preserve the trees on either side of Yonge Avenue, Yonge Avenue. What else do I have to say? Not much. I think it's great. I've ridden my bike along the Greenway before and thought it was a little silly that there wasn't a better connection there. So I think this will be great. Yeah.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you. Holly?
There, now I'm unmuted. Have you had any pushback from anyone, the public, or on any of the parts of this? I'm just really curious.
Yeah, we're just getting started with the public consultation process, so not too much yet. I did speak with some of our community stakeholders yesterday. So Halifax Cycling Coalition, Walk and Roll. So our multi-use path is only shown at 3 meters. So we got the expected comment that they would like it to be wider. They did question the value of the bridge, the new active transportation bridge, because it is an expensive piece of infrastructure. And, is that the best way of spending cycling dollars in the city right now? Or is there another route that we could choose for the short term and then come back and revisit the bridge later on once we've got a better kind of core network established through the peninsula? Those are the big ones. We met with the Accessibility Advisory Committee on Monday, and we got a little bit of good feedback there as well. But yeah, we're just getting started on the consultation phase.
Okay. I was just curious because they brought up everything that I was thinking there, except that the bridge, that I don't see an issue with the bridge at all. Yeah, they're expensive. I've built enough of them to know that, but I think that's the best option for that point. And the safety aspect of this is really nicely done. I'd just like to say that comment. Thank you.
Yeah, to clarify, they really like the bridge too. They're just worried about the cost.
Thank you, Holly. Stephanie?
Nathan, and thanks, folks, for the great presentation. Really exciting to see some of the things come together. I guess my only question would just be about if there's any sort of summary reports that we'd be receiving on the pop-up sessions and the input that would be received through those, and any other data coming in through the surveys that would affect the 30% plan at this point.
Yeah, the kind of the public consultation phase and like what's going online and in person will be kind of all through into mid-October, and we'll be putting together a what we heard report from that. I don't think we have in the plan coming back to present again at the meeting, but Erin, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's any problem with sharing that what we heard document back to the committee.
Absolutely. We can share it back to the committee, and we typically post it on our Engage Halifax page as well once it's completed and once we have the results from the public engagement. And we can certainly provide a link to that Engage page, which will go live on September 24th, and the survey will be available then as well. And we'll be advertising for the public engagement sessions through there as well. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Stephanie. Elizabeth Pugh?
Hi, thanks for the presentation, Garrett. That was really interesting. No comments or questions from me right now. Thanks.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Oh, sorry, Peter?
Hi, thank you very much. Good presentation. I'm sort of, as a cyclist, sitting here saying, I wonder if I could get a little map that would show that territory that I can ride to see where it is today, and then put it together with pictures that you've got. I mean, it would be very nice if you sent out a nice, easy to print, easy on ink PDF of that area and say, here's the map, ride it. But, you know, take a look at it where it is now. So that's a request. Aside from that, having a place where you get to the park without taking much roadway, that might be really a positive thing to sell to the larger, I want my car road space people out there, you know, the people who are so enamored of getting where they're going by car. You know, so that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Peter. All right, Maggie?
Nothing to add at my plate, my side. Just echo a lot of the comments that they've been already kind of covered my thoughts on it. But thanks so much. This is really, really interesting, and I'm excited to see it moving forward.
Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you. I believe Glenn hasn't joined yet. So, Alexi?
Awesome. First of all, thank you, Garrett and Erin. Really appreciate the time and the presentation. Really informative. It's nice to see some of the different options and what that practically looks like in terms of trade-offs. I have a few questions. They're all pretty much related to parking. So my first question is, do you folks have a sense from the assessment of existing conditions, how much parking lost is actually just basically can be absorbed by existing properties that people are using, like basically using the road as overflow parking for their own vehicles? Like, do we know if the substantial, like when there's always contentions when there's parking removed, but do we know if it's actually meaningfully removed, or if this is the case where people have multiple vehicles and they've decided to subsidize the vehicle use with public use of land? My second question is, I noticed in the evaluation criteria, there's a note on the ability to mitigate the losses to on-street parking. I guess following into that, like how important is it to really evaluate that, given that parking is often used to jam up AT and transit projects? And then the final thing is that I thought that the option of Franklin Road was really interesting, and I wonder what the mitigation strategies were for addressing the private use of public land as it comes up to as people using basically municipal property for gardening. As much as it's really nice, like my concern would be that someone who's basically been using that property would try to say, well, I've always been doing this and I want to continue to, even though it's not really, it's not fair from the use of public land to really levy that. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Alexi. So as part of our existing conditions analysis, we went through and kind of documented what's going on with all the parking throughout the whole study area. Most of the areas that we're dealing with, it's pretty clear like where the major users are, and there is some residential parking, but not a lot of it. So on this map, I'm going to highlight kind of on the west side of Franklin. This is the Atlantic School of Theology. There's a lot of on-street parking adjacent to the School of Theology. It looks like it's probably mostly staff people coming in. Now, is a public road the best use to provide staff parking for an institution? You know, there's a question there. On Gorsebrook, there's a lot of permit parking and short-term parking that's related to needs of SMU. So SMU as a parking attractor, if you will. Again, you have that same question about, is it necessary for the road to serve that need, or is there other options? Along Tower Road, there is some activity that is residential in nature because there's like a lack of driveways and stuff for those older homes along Tower Road. In our option where it's a local street bikeway and there's parking along one side only, there's probably enough parking with one side of parking to serve that need. So we have been thinking about that as well. On Yonge, there is a lot of parking that's happening. I'm not sure exactly why. It doesn't appear to be related to residential need because most of the houses in this area are really big and they've got driveways and everything. And so it looks like there's probably some folks that are parking here and walking a little bit to get to, a place of work or something else like that they're going to. So there'll be cars displaced, but not necessarily for that residential purpose.
Yep.
The evaluation for parking, it's a factor, and we want to document all the factors, but not a strong one. And then I marked private as my note just as you finished it. I forget what you said. That's the last question. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. No, I just asked, like, I know you noted that on Franklin Road that there's currently the use of basically like the municipal or not boundary, but the edge of the curb. Uses. And it's like it's nice, but like I don't know. It's still public.
Yeah, I don't think there's any risk of like not being able to use that land. It's just a matter of being sensitive to those homeowners and going through, with corporate real estate and communicating effectively to them, and trying to be sensitive about it, if that is the option that's pursued. Yeah, it's kind of a crappy situation, and you just kind of got to bite the bullet.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's very helpful.
Great. Next, Vice Chair Melina.
Great. Thanks, Nathan. Hi, Garrett. Hi, Aaron. Hello. It's been a while. Thanks for the pretty decent description. I followed most of it. Really appreciate it. I do have a few questions. One starting with if you could summarize just briefly what you did hear from the Accessibility Advisory Committee. I'm curious to hear what you remembered, what you took back.
Yeah, so the Accessibility Advisory Committee, we went through the exact same presentation, rapid fire, just like with you guys. We had a few different things come up around like what does it mean to be accessible. And at this stage of the project, there's not a lot of meat on that bone because we're very early kind of selecting routes. And so we talked a little bit about making sure that whichever concept is selected, that we're implementing those accessibility improvements along that route, whatever route it happens to be, whatever facility happens to be. There's obviously the kind of the same conversation that we had with Walk and Roll and with the Halifax Cycling Coalition about user conflict on multi-use paths. So that was a big piece. We did talk a little bit about Yonge Avenue as well, and kind of the importance of the median over there and the cultural value that that provides. Yeah, I think those are the big ones. We did do minutes that I'm just not remembering off the top of my head. But maybe Aaron, if you remember something else, I'll put you on the spot. But if not, then next question.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the key points. And I think there was just questions and maybe like higher level questions around who can use what facilities. And I think there was a conversation around multi-use pathways and, you know, how those are used or conflicts with users. But really, I think, yeah, Garrett hit the highlights there.
Okay,
Thanks,
good, thank you. I do have a few other questions, and I'm sorry to have missed a meeting yesterday. I was supposed to be in with Walk and Roll as well. I don't know the proper word to use here, but maybe highly agitated, frustrated, and disturbed at your use, Garrett, of upgrading the sidewalk to a multi-use path, because a sidewalk for people with disabilities, particularly those from my population, blind and partially sighted, is our safest route. It tells us exactly where we are, where we're going when we're done at the end of a block or the second block. So to me, to say that the term that you use, upgrading, you know, from the disability perspective, from the walkability perspective, it's not upgrading, it's downgrading, because you are, and that's why I was curious to see what from the Accessibility Advisory Committee you heard. It is putting us in a conflict zone with cyclists, children, dogs, you know, and there's a lot of people who are not paying attention to anything anymore. I love multi-use paths in a wooded area. I think it's great. It's lovely. But if there's a sidewalk existing, please refrain from removing that sidewalk. That's my comment on that. My second comment would be, I'm not sure where your public engagement points will be. I think I read a couple, but you are, and I think you mentioned something about potentially removing a sidewalk around St. Mary's University, turning it into multi-use paths. St. Mary's is one of the best universities that incorporates, houses a lot of folks with disabilities, again, who do not get on a bicycle. So if you're removing sidewalks within that area, again, you're making conflict zones. Okay, and the province of Nova Scotia has the highest rate of people with disabilities. St. Mary's University houses a lot of students, which I think is fantastic and phenomenal. So I would encourage, and maybe you will be going there, for you to go to the accessibility office, make that a point, and discuss with the students of St. Mary's with disabilities, because I'm blind. I'm on this Active Transportation Advisory Committee. You have the Accessibility Advisory Committee. You have certain individuals who have certain perspectives. I'm not speaking on behalf of everyone. I just know what I'm hearing, and there's a lot more commentary to be had. Okay, that's it. And last but not least, there was a couple of mentions of raised sidewalks. I can't remember which street it was, and the raised protected, not sidewalk, cycle tracks. There needs to be very distinct separation between the cycle track and the sidewalk when it's at the same level. And those, and I noticed Mr. Neener came on board too, that raised cycle track is not going across a crosswalk, an intersection, that it's dropped to the ground level where vehicles are, because it is confusing, disorientating, And I'll point you to Roby and Almond and Windsor and Almond. Those of us who are blind and partially sighted have no idea where we are or how to cross any longer. We have been greatly impacted. End of my thoughts. I thank you for your presentation.
Thanks, Milena. Thank you for calling me out on the upgrade. I usually try to use the word replace, but just speaking extemporaneously, I used the wrong word. For everybody's benefit, I guess, on October 2nd, we're going to be having a pop-up in Loyola building at St. Mary's University. And on October 4th, there will be a pop-up at kind of the parking lot area off the end of Tower Road within Point Pleasant Park. That's on a Saturday, so that we can try to capture, the users of the park, not just the folks that live in the area. And then at the warming center at the arena on Tower Road on the SMU campus as well, on October 9th in the evening, we'll be having a public open house with kind of boards around to look at. So those are our activities. Great. And we'll definitely try to connect with the accessibility office through our SMU contact to see if they can help promote it to get some folks out to that. And the raised bike lane, the street that was on is on Yonge Avenue, and there is I think it's about a 2-meter wide grass boulevard with mature trees in it between the sidewalk and those bike lanes that are being proposed on that street.
Fabulous. That's achieving the one. Yes, that's great. And then if you could, work. Maybe this could be your first pilot because it's, we can't have this happening any longer. I and many of my colleagues can no longer travel in many places because we're walking down the bike lane or we're heading into traffic, despite the Twizzies that are being placed. But thank you.
Thank you too.
Yeah.
Always appreciate it.
Okay.
Right. Thank you. Peter, you've got your hand raised there. Is that just for the second round of questions?
Yep. Basically, it passed through my mind talking about the bridge over the thing. Is the city open to or actively considering looking for a sponsor? I mean, either a rich family or corporate. Having naming rights to that bridge would be a very public spirited thing. I mean, you're not going to make money off of the name branding as you would with the Scotiabank Arena and so forth. But it would be, I would like the city to put that out and say, this is a worthy thing. It's a great thing. If you want to remember your rich grandfather, please give us a call. So on that, I'll say thanks again.
Thanks for that suggestion, Peter. I mean, I think we're, everything's on the table at this point. We're in the concept design phase, so.
Yeah, that's a new one. I haven't heard of the naming rights idea yet, but we have been kind of gently prodding some of the utilities and SMU to see if there's any interest in partnering on extra uses for that bridge as it crosses, because crossing a live rail track is a difficult process, so we want to make the best use of it if we can.
All right. And then I was last. So I just had a couple of questions and comments. Firstly, thank you. That was very detailed. Apologies, I couldn't attend the meeting yesterday on behalf of Cycling Nova Scotia. Just curious. So concepts 1 and 2 and concepts 4 in particular, obviously talked about local street bikeways. You mentioned Tower Road, obviously that's kind of on the limit, so might need additional calming. For concepts 1 and 2 in particular, what would be involved in transforming that into a local street bikeway? What interventions would be made?
Yeah, so for concept 1, which is local street bikeway, concept 2 follows the same route, but that's the multi-use path. Yeah, concept 1, there would be the sidewalk added to provide space for pedestrians that doesn't exist today. We would be addressing that corner where Pine Hill Drive and Franklin come together. That's kind of messy right now, and vehicles as they're traveling through that corner don't really have clear guidance of where they should be. And then right where the bridge comes out onto Pine Hill, we'd probably be doing some sort of treatment there. Not sure because we're too early, but something there to try to create like an entrance feature to say this is where the multi-use path from the Greenway is coming across and entering the street, to kind of signal to everybody what's happening. We'd probably look at a couple of different locations for a speed table along Franklin. And then at that entrance to Point Pleasant Park, another treatment there. We got to cross for the crosswalk from the new sidewalk into the park, but also kind of that entrance feature to say this is where you're transitioning. So something's going on here to kind of draw people's attention to it.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm a big fan of local street bikeways, as long as they're accompanied by some traffic calming to make them work. That was great. And then just a couple other thoughts, more so than questions. Sorry, I've lost track of my thought there. Young Ave, I'll just echo what other people have clearly said in other meetings. Yeah, the significance of that median strip. I think it would be an absolute shame to see that go. So, I mean, obviously, yeah, I'd love to see as much bike lane as possible, but I think it would be pretty devastating to lose that little bit of green space on Young Ave. But yeah, so I'll leave that there. And also echo some of the comments that have clearly been made. The AT bridge, I mean, yes, I think it would be a great connection, but I question how much value it would add to AT users and pedestrians in the area where, you know, Tower Road isn't far, and the cost that the bridge would presumably be. I feel like that money could be spent elsewhere. So just echoing that. And then looking at the criteria you've got, it's a really great list. I'm really happy to see the safety and environmental security section there. Thinking about the Greenway extension, what steps would you take to improve the safety and security of people using that trail? Is there an idea at the moment?
Yeah, so for the Greenway extension that's going through the Oaks, that is kind of planned at this point to be illuminated the full length. So we bring kind of pedestrian scale lighting along the full length, trying to make it entrances into and off of the trail, as many as possible. So at Beaufort, at Greenwood, at Rogers, at Gorsbrook, and then depending on what happens with the campus master plan, if there's other opportunities working with SMU on that side as well to provide more accesses to the trail. So trying to open it up, trying to light it up. Those are the key features right now.
Right. And then, sorry, just going back to the comment about local street bikeways, as Milena said before, I think the local street bikeway, it reduces the potential conflict of a MUP, and also, if you're talking about installing some of the concepts, installing sidewalks and that kind of thing. I think it just gives better access to a wider range of people. So I think the local street bikeways, and also the speed at which they can be installed, is quite important for us. We'd like to see the infrastructure going in quickly. Also noticing public sentiment, though it's only weighted at 5% of your criteria, particularly in the current climate. I mean, I'm surprised it's not weighted slightly more heavily, but yeah, I think local street bikeways are a good option at this point in time as well. But I'll leave it there. Me.
Thanks, Nathan. Yeah, all those weights are up for grabs based on feedback we get from people. So that's good to hear.
Perfect. So that was the full round. So we'll move into the second round.
No, sorry, Nathan. It wasn't. I wasn't given an opportunity to speak yet.
Sorry about that. I've obviously skipped over that. My apologies, Roseanne. Please take your time.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't have any specific questions. I just want to say thank you very much for the presentation. It was very interesting. I guess I just have some kind of general comments in terms of the initial concepts and design for this, and was trying to think of it in the context of, I think, the broader conversations around active transportation and cycling and bike lanes in particular, which, you know, have been happening over the summer, I think, in terms of the broader population in HRM. And certainly the things that stuck out for me, I think, were the discussion around the removal of parking spots, and I think the reaction that we can expect. I think once we move out from some of the smaller committees that have a very kind of focused and connected response to these issues and move out to the broader consultations, I think that will be, I think, a bit of a lightning rod in terms of the conversations. And I'm trying to think carefully around not only the capital in terms of money that we might be spending, but the social capital that we might be spending in terms of the broader support for active transportation. That I think we'd want to be careful around those conversations, be prepared for those conversations, and have some kind of process in terms of, you know, addressing, I think, maybe the initial reactions that people may have when they're hearing about more parking being removed from the downtown core, and what does that mean for congestion and where are people going to go? And it was the same kind of thought I had around the bridge. Again, I think it's great, it'd be wonderful to have, but again, if we're talking about, that's a huge investment. Again, it's not only capital from an infrastructure perspective, but it is that social capital in terms of this big major project and what's the value and what's the return in terms of that project. I was very interested to hear that you're having the conversations with St. Mary's about maybe looking at that bridge and seeing if it can be supported in some way of broader uses for it, I think is a really good way to go. But to me, those two issues were sort of red flags in terms of that broader public consultation. I think those are going to be challenging issues given the current environment in terms of having those conversations. And the third sort of thought for me was really around the local bikeways. And I know that they're a great kind of concept and they're easier to put in place, and they do mitigate some of the other issues that we talk about, which may have more, you know, infrastructure cost. But my caveat around that is that they're doing an awful lot of heavy lifting in the city right now about trying to have sort of an integrated cycling path, for instance. And there's been very little broad education and awareness around what those bikeways actually mean and how they should work. And there's just sort of an assumption that we're painting some chevrons and a bike on this pavement, and people understand, particularly people in cars, understand what that means and how it's going to work. So my caveat would be, we really need to be thinking about how this is going to be communicated to the broader community, and to really have some focused education and awareness around how really are we all sharing the roads, and what does that mean? And as a community, how do we work together to make that less of a conflict? So those were just my initial thoughts hearing the presentation. It was really well done, so thanks.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Thanks, Roseanne, and sorry again for skipping over there. I really like to point about the social capital there. It's a good way to look at it. So moving to the second round now of questions. So typically we'll do 3 minutes rather than going through the whole roll. We might just throw it open. So if anyone would like to make a second comment, you'll have 3 minutes. Just raise your hand. So kicking things off, Milena, you've got your hand up. Sorry, Milena, if you're still muted, if you'd like to add anything else.
Sorry about that. The screen readers changed formatting. It's lovely having a million voices in my head. I just had, I'm very happy to hear, number one, the discussion on that there's going to be a lot of extra lighting no matter what happens. This is very important for all users you know, and all human beings. And the other thing, Garrett, I was just wondering if you could and would, this is off topic a little bit, sent to Alawumi to distribute. You sent out a north end street completion in case there are some individuals on the committee that are in the neighborhood or travel the neighborhoods. I think that would be a good investment for you as well. If you
Perfect.
recall. Great. Yeah.
Yep.
Great. Thank you. That's it. Thank you. End of thought.
Elena, Councillor John Young, you'd like to make some comments?
Yes, thanks, Nathan. It's just the cost estimates for all 5 of the options. Is that being weighed on which is the best feasible option based on what it's going to cost?
So we don't have cost estimates for everything, like hard cost estimates. We are looking at kind of what type of infrastructure, what type of impacts we're into for each option as part of the criteria that we have for, you know, implementation feasibility. We did take a look at the AT bridge structure in particular to look at what the cost of that would be, because it's kind of a big item. To kind of run through the rough costs for these, option 1 and 2 have that really big upfront cost of the bridge. Out of option 1 and 2, number 1, because it uses a local street bikeway, is much cheaper than 2. Option number 3 is really expensive. It doesn't require a new bridge, but it's doing a lot of utility replacements, taking down trees, moving curbs, removing parking. There's a lot of kind of intensive work there, both from a cost and just an impact to the community perspective. Whereas option number 4, which is local street bikeway the whole way, doesn't require a new bridge, is probably the cheapest option overall. Option number 5 uses a combination of local street bikeway and bike lanes. So it's going to be probably one of the middle options cost-wise. I didn't mention as part of the presentation, but it kind of ties in now. Young Ave all the way up to South Park Street is a block on the Active Transportation Priorities Plan, the IMP, as a bike connection. And so option number 5 kind of overlaps with another project that kind of hasn't been picked up to be carried forward yet. So there's a little bit of synergy in the overall bike network if option 5 is pursued.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Elizabeth, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I guess I would just like a clarification on the cost side of things, because in your matrix it was only 15%. And I'm just wondering, is it really? Because does that mean that HRM is committed to funding whatever the best option turns out to be based on, you know, your consultation and all the sort of analysis you're doing now? Or will, at the end of the day, if one is twice as much, you know, if one's 2 million and one's 50,000, will it be, oh, yeah, we're doing the 50,000, you know, we're not spending the money, regardless of how it all comes out? I'm just kind of curious exactly how that 15% gets factored in.
Yeah, so for the evaluation matrix, we're trying to balance a whole lot of things in like a 100% total. So we're trying to be kind of fair and balanced across a bunch of different things, but also reflecting the fact that this is an active transportation project, and that's the priority of the project. And the IMP has, you know, AT at the top of the inverted triangle. That said, it does all go back to council for approval at the end of the day. So if council doesn't like the price tag of the option that's recommended, then they don't like the price tag.
Stephanie, got your hand up as well?
Thanks, Nathan. I just have a super quick question. I'm not sure if it could even be answered at this point, but given that this is at the sort of the 30% plan stage, if it is approved by council, is there a estimated date when you'd be looking at sort of when a 95% or 60% or 95% would be sort of aimed at being achieved?
I can jump in there, Garrett. I think for the In addition to approval by council, we also need to allocate budget to the projects. And we kind of see the project as two parts, with the Greenway section that will be on the SMU campus, which, you know, we didn't get into a ton of detail because there's really not a lot of options. And then the second part is making that connection from the university down to Point Pleasant Park. So kind of the timelines would depend on when budget becomes available. In our conversations with SMU, they're eager to see that Greenway move forward. So I think that would be our priority for now. And then depending on the selected concept option, we would likely look at, you know, the best scenario and timing to implement that. So typically we like to implement some of these projects with other recap projects or other utility upgrades that might be happening within the corridor at the same time, just so they're cost effective and minimize disruption. So kind of based on those things, we would determine when that Point Pleasant Park connection would move forward.
Thanks.
All right. Looks like there's no more raised hands. So thank you everyone for the questions. Thank you, Erin and Garrett, for the presentation, and thank you for answering all our questions and responding to the comments. It's greatly appreciated.
Thanks very much, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right. So moving along now to the active transportation update. So tonight we've got Mark Nina, Supervisor for Active Transportation Planning at HRM, to provide the AT update. So I'd like to invite Mark to talk.
Thank you, Nathan. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks to Erin and Garrett for that presentation and for taking those questions. I think they did a great job. I guess maybe the first update is an update about David McIsaac. If you're not already aware, David McIsaac, who was the manager of active transportation planning for or active transportation with Public Works, is on secondment to the Federation of Nova Scotia Municipalities for at least 2 years. So he's no longer working with HRM. And I think, as I understand it, I'll be the staff representative for this committee from today going forward. I hope that's okay. So I have an update for you today on a few projects. I'll start with the Parkland Drive AT project that's looking at options to add protected bike lanes to Parkland Drive. So there was actually an internal technical committee meeting for that project today, and the consulting team presented the draft functional plan. And so now there'll be a review period for staff to send in additional and more detailed comments. Then we've got the Bears Road AT connection that's looking at adding an AT connection across the existing bridge over the rail cut at the bottom of Bears Road. So there's some additional work beginning for that project, looking at basically doing some structural analysis just to confirm that the bridge structure could support the proposed additional AT infrastructure that's been planned as part of that project. So that work has just begun recently. We have the new functional planning project looking at the connection from Almond Street at Agricola, where the new protected bike lanes end, and looking at achieving a AAA connection from there to our north-south connection on Isleville and Gottingen Street. So actually, Garrett is also the project manager on the consulting side for that project. They've completed a study of the existing conditions, and they hosted the first technical committee meeting for that this week to review a pre-screening of concepts before identifying the 3 or 4 concepts that they're going to move forward with. And there's public engagement for that project planned for this fall, and that will include a presentation to ATAC. We've got the Isleville intersections, where we did some public engagement this summer, seeking some additional feedback on the 2 existing vehicle diverters. We're going to be taking an application to the variance committee to have those diverters reviewed before we proceed with a recommendation to council to make those diverters permanent and to upgrade them with more permanent infrastructure. The target for construction of those diverters has recently been pushed out to 2027. I have a quick reminder from Emma about the community grants for capital and recapitalization projects. Applications are accepted until October the 6th. Details related to applicants and project eligibility, the terms and conditions, and the application package are all available at halifax.ca/grants. For the Hale Pond Park and Dunbrack Street AT project, we have the draft functional plan completed and are planning an additional engagement session with area residents and other external stakeholder groups just to review the draft plan. That's going to happen in October. And then finally, I've got some updates about our eco counter network, the Dutch Village Road project and the Brunswick Street Bikeway project. We've procured counters for both of those projects, so those are in the hands of the inspectors and contractors now for installation. After a long wait, we finally fixed the McDonald Bridge Bikeway counter loops on the Dartmouth side. So that counter is now properly counting 2 directions of bicycle traffic on the Dartmouth side of the bridge. And we're working out details for procuring counters for the newly opened Nova Scotia Public Works Aerotech connector multi-use pathway. And I think just yesterday, Martin from our team helped Dalhousie install a new battery to make their University Ave counter and display operational again. And we're looking into making that data available on HRM's IMP dashboard. And you can also expect an update on the shared micromobility pilot from Brittany, maybe in October, but most likely in November. And she'll be sharing some ridership data with the committee, I believe, and also some data around compliance. And that's my update.
Thanks, Mark. And to speak for myself, very happy to have you stepping in to give us our updates. I'm sure everyone else feels the same, so appreciate you making the time. So moving into question time. So similar to before, committee members will have 5 minutes in the first round, so I'll just run through the list, and then there'll be time for 3 minutes in the second round. So we've lost Peter now, I believe, but starting with Councillor Young.
Nothing to add at this moment.
Thank you. Addie?
Hi, yeah, I just had a question about why the Isleville, sorry, I forget the term that's used, but the bump outs there and the diverters, why that is being extended until 2027, like making those more permanent. If you could talk about that, that'd be great.
There's, I think it's related to a number of factors. It's partly about timing, because our colleagues in the design engineering group in Public Works have been scoping and beginning design work on projects that will be tendered for construction next year, and we're not quite ready to go to council and seek that approval. So the timing of council approval hasn't lined up well with the design, the preliminary design process. There's an opportunity to integrate with some upgrades to the park, the Hydrostone Park at Young K Isleville, and so I think that design work needs to be resourced and just hasn't advanced far enough yet. And then there's also some discussions about integrating the project with road rehabilitation projects in the area, which at this point are not prioritized for next year. So I guess all of those factors have resulted in this decision to push it off. And the fact that we have infrastructure in place now, we have like the diverters are installed using the tactical materials, so they're operational, they're functioning as intended. It just means that it's not a super high priority at this point to upgrade them.
Great. Yeah, that totally makes sense. I live just down the road, so they are working very well. I love biking through them and walking there. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Holly? Sorry, I couldn't see that. Holly, take it there's nothing to comments?
No. Actually, I do. The new stewardship program that Halifax Regional is trying to implement, I was wondering if we could marry that up with the various trail groups and the groups building trails throughout the municipality, in order to get all the trails connected to active transportation. And if we can add that to the dialogue somehow. And have I confused people?
I'm not familiar with the new stewardship program. I'm a little I'll have to say I'm a little disconnected from the work on trails. Emma Martin, who is now kind of our expert on that topic, is still in Public Works. We're not working in the same, on the same team anymore. So if there's questions or comments related to trails and the trails organizations, I'm going to have to loop in Emma at some point for comment.
Okay, I'll try and give her another call. But trails are part of the active transportation system, so don't discount them, please.
Oh yeah, no, I think we definitely recognize that, and I think we have some projects, planning projects that are about connecting to those facilities, or even making use of that existing connection to make other make other connections. I'm thinking of the Woodside Shearwater AT connector project as an example of that.
We've been waiting for that piece for a very long time.
We're getting closer on that one. We're getting closer. That is a project that Dave McIsaac was the lead on that, and he got it pretty close to the finish line. Like it's still going to need council approval and budget, but that project is going to come over to my team in strategic infrastructure and transportation planning, and we're going to do our best to get it to the finish line.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Holly. Next up, Stephanie.
Thanks, Nathan. I think Addie actually hit on my question as well, so I feel like that one was already answered there about the vehicle diverters. I guess my just a comment rather than question at this time is just it's exciting to see the counters back up and running, and I'm glad that they're all going to be actively providing us with some new data and info. Thanks.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
Thanks for the update, Mark. Of course, you're welcome as our new rep, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm not very happy with David right now. Just kidding. I don't have anything specific, thanks. There is a couple of things that I wouldn't mind connecting with you on, in a more one-on-one thing sometime soon, just to bring you up to speed with some things and, things that I was working on with David, and a couple of questions about things, but they're nitty-gritty stuff, not for this committee.
I'd be happy to meet.
Perfect. Maggie?
Just to say thanks for stepping up, Mark, and thanks for your update there. I think just thinking about some of the excellent questions and comments that some of my committee colleagues have been making, and just thinking the counters, really, again, a number of people have expressed their pleasure to hear that those are up and running and being increased. But I think it kind of ties in with Roseanne LeBlanc's point, a really excellent point about just getting ahead of the pushback. And I think the whole data collection piece is really important in terms of just our messaging around why this is important and why we're doing this. And so the more that we can, have good data about ridership and use, and, it's not this to kind of break down some of the myths about, oh, nobody's using bikeways, or nobody's using active transportation, and just trying to change that, the mindset, I guess, and the working towards a modal shift in how we get around, how we move around the city. But obviously there's other pieces to it, aren't there? Like just the whole infrastructure and safety, but I think the communication piece and the data being a part of that is the comment I'd like to make. So thanks so much for that update on all of that.
Thank you, Maggie. Roseanne?
Welcome, Mark. I don't have any questions, but maybe just a comment as someone who relies on the Isleville Bikeway. Just the sheer amount of construction that has been going on for, over a year. And now the section between Yonge and Ontario is completely impassable. You're diverted to Gottingen, which is under construction. And don't get me started on the quality of the pavement on Northwood Terrace and how difficult it is to actually bike. So for me, it's a critical bikeway. It's how I get downtown, and it has been challenging, very challenging the past couple of years to try to find a safe way, dodging all of the construction and the loose gravel and the terrible pavement. And I'm very happy that it's there. I'll be very happy when the bikeway is functional as an integrated bikeway, but as a cyclist, it has been challenging and frustrating for the past little while in terms of needing to rely on that bikeway to get to downtown. But I am optimistic that the construction will be finished soon.
Thank you, Roseanne. Alexei?
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, Mark, nice to meet you virtually. Happy to have you here. I just have a couple of questions / comments. So the first one is about Isleville. I also live very close to the bikeway and rely on it very frequently as both a pedestrian and a cyclist. I absolutely love the parts like between Duffus and Yonge. My big concerns, and this is a concern that spills over onto Agricola, which I can just see right outside my window, is there are no stop signs anywhere, and it breeds a particular form of driver behavior which is very dangerous. Like just this morning, I had someone yell at me that I shouldn't be crossing the road in the middle of an intersection, which is, I mean, all crosswalks under the Motor Vehicle Service Act that have like basically an entry point are considered an acceptable crossing. I think part of the issue is that it's enforcement. Like we don't actually have much enforcement of like dangerous driving in at least in the peninsula. I can't speak to other parts. But I wonder if as some of the bikeway work on Isleville is being done, is there any consideration given to actually having more than just a zebra crossing and beg buttons, but actually having like a hard stop so that when people are absolutely zipping through on Yonge Street, they're making that stop. I know people often perceive it as being inconvenient for drivers, but I think the payoff in safety is well worth the mild inconvenience in extra seconds. As it is, it's already a well-trafficked intersection that I've personally almost been hit at. I've seen other people almost been hit at as both a cyclist and a pedestrian. So I brought this up, I think, last time too, but I see it more and more, especially as the school season is back in and more people are driving in the neighborhood. There's really no respect for vulnerable users, and I use that term to encompass everyone not in a car, just in the North End in general, but also elsewhere. The other thing is, I would request when we hear an update about the micromobility and bird service, if we could also get some information about cost and how the cost of the service compares to other municipalities in Canada. My perception is that it's actually quite a high cost per trip, in spite of what my understanding is like really excellent ridership compared to other cities. And I was just wondering if that is like an initial upfront like recovery of cost component, or if that's going to remain high. I know like I took a short trip and it was about $8 to go from Agricola and Merkel to Gladstone and Ullman, which is frankly a very high price to pay for functionally a short bike trip. It's about a kilometer and a bit. Thank you.
Okay, so your first question, are you concerned about a particular intersection? Was that Isleville at Yonge?
Oh, so I think the first intersection is Isleville at Yonge. I think it's like very busy. One, because you have like basically functionally a mini high street, and so you have high traffic, like pedestrian and cycling traffic, and also high cars, especially during rush hour. But I think the other thing is like in general around Agricola, like no one respects crossing. It's frankly feels dangerous at times for such a quiet road. And I think part of it is that some people use it to to basically get around having to go on Novalee or going on, I guess, what is Roby into um, yeah, I guess onto Roby. But it's that like you can basically go the entire strip from Yonge Street to Duffus without any form of of stopping, and people rip through it. I mean, the other issue is just that the bumps that we do have are frankly like insufficient. They're less bumps and more light taps. But I know that that's like a larger issue. But anyways, yeah.
Well, I'd have to check in with my colleagues in road safety, I think, and about that particular concern, and see if it's on their radar. I mean,
Sure. Thank you.
So I'll do that. And then, sorry, your second request, I guess, was for some information about the cost of our shared micromobility system compared to other cities. I can pass that on to
Thank you.
to Brittany. I mean, I can say that the cost of the when we put out the RFP to identify a preferred operator to provide the service, we did we had a number of criteria that we used to score the proposals, and one of those criteria was looking at what the proposed user fees would be. There was no requirement that the program actually generate revenue for HRM. Although there are revenues generated, from use of the system for HRM, and we did kind of compare what those revenues would be from between the different proposals. So it was a factor, but like a fairly small, factor, not kind of a defining criteria, I would say. Like it wasn't weighted heavily. But affordability of the system, what was a priority and was definitely considered as part of the procurement process. Okay. And there's a few, there are some programs, pricing programs in place that are meant to help make the system more accessible to lower income users. But Brittany can definitely speak more to that.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Thank
during
you.
her update.
All right, thank you. Vice Chair Milena.
Have I unmuted?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thanks. Thanks. Welcome aboard, Mark. I was looking forward to a new punching bag. I think David got tired. For the committee members, Mark and I have known each other a long time.
Might have been a factor in his departure. Who knows?
I do have a couple of questions. Just let me get to my sheet here. The Bears Road, the bridge. Can you just go back and repeat what you said about that project? Is CN Rail giving to HRM or?
No, not CN. We have so we've developed a plan to add a multi-use pathway to the existing bridge that's owned by the province that goes across the rail cut at the bottom of Bears Road. Where Highway 102 exit 0.
Oh yes,
enters
okay.
the peninsula onto Bears Road.
Yeah.
So we have the Bears Road multi-use pathway that ends at the sidewalk now before the bridge. So we've developed a plan to add a multi-use pathway across the bridge, basically reallocating the space that's on the bridge now. Yeah. Nova Scotia Public Works is supportive of the plan, and but we did come to understand that we needed to do this additional structural analysis work before, just to confirm that we could actually add this multi-use pathway and a barrier between the multi-use pathway and traffic to the existing structure of the bridge. So that's what we're working on now.
Okay, and when do you think that will be completed? Not the actual physicality of it, but just the study.
Oh, I think in the next couple of months. It's not going to be a long process.
Okay, all right.
We're hoping to build that. We're hoping to build that connection across the bridge as early as next year, or maybe 26 or 27.
Right,
that's my understanding.
Great, that'll be great. My other question. Almond, going from Roby Street down to Gottingen. Who's the project manager on that one again? Garrett?
Catherine. Catherine McClellan on the HRM side.
Yep.
And Garrett is the project manager on the consulting team side.
Okay. Because I do not want to see what has happened at Roby and Almond and Windsor and Almond again. There is no way, no how. Mark that in your book, please and thank you. So I'll be reaching out. I'll be reaching out to Catherine. Okay. As much as
Yeah.
I want bike lanes, I want everyone to be safe, but we need to start to consider the walkability part. And you are in the prime area of CNIB. So, which by the way, I'm very happy to hear that there's a lot of committee members that are all on the north end here. And the last question I'll have for you, which I don't know if you can answer, but I have brought this up before. Brunswick Street, that's coming up. You know, I sat on many stakeholder meetings. We came to certain conclusions, and the final draft and that it's gone to tender and what is happening is not what was promised, as it seems to be in many of these projects. And I'm speaking on again on the walkability safety aspect of things. So part of me is really starting to lose faith why we're having stakeholder meetings, why we're having consultations. You know, again, I'll keep repeating this, that we need evaluator processes after the fact, because pedestrians are not happy, the cyclists are not happy, and in the end, it's people are getting angry with one another, you know, and so we need some evaluation after the fact, because while you're asking the public for input from the beginning, there's nothing happening at the end. I keep saying this over and over. So please put that to whomever to start the evaluator process after. What works? What didn't? Do we like this? Didn't we like this? Like you were there at Almond and Windsor once that bike lane was almost completed. And that's it for me. And I'm glad you're here.
Thank you, Milena. I 100% agree that we do need a comprehensive monitoring and evaluation program in place. It's definitely on the radar. You know, it relates to a previous comment about making sure that we're collecting the data that we need to kind of tell the story about the impact that the infrastructure is having over time. And help inform decisions about, you know, what projects to prioritize. So all I can say is that, you know, that is a priority.
Good. Thank you. End of thoughts.
Thank you. I'm up last. Thanks for the updates, Mark. Some detail. Just one quick question. Not sure how involved your team is in this. Are there any updates on the Herring Cove Road multimodal corridor?
I don't have an update for you, and I'm not familiar enough with that project to provide you with any information today, but it's something that I could look into.
That's okay. No, I don't mean to pressure you. Just curious how that's going. And then also just going back, I just missed a comment you made about the Hale Pond Dunbrack. Did you say it was a functional plan? Should be prepared in October?
We're aiming to do a public engagement event in October to share the draft plan.
Draft. Thank you. That's it from me. Does anyone else, if anyone, sorry, has any other comments or any questions I'd like to ask, to keep it simple, just feel free to throw your hands up. Addie, straight in there.
So, I just had a question about another question related to the north end. The intersection of Almond and Roby. I noticed that there's new bike signals that have gone up along the intersection there. But I've also noticed that they don't change colors. It just always says, it's just always red. So I guess I was wondering if that's just because they're new, or if you have any comments on that. And I can
I can speak to those bike signals. Yes. I would have been surprised if that didn't come up at today's meeting. So there are new bike signals at all three of the signalized intersections along that bikeway at Windsor, at Roby, and at Agricola. But the bike signals at Roby are designed to provide a separated phase for cyclists traveling east-west on Almond. So that's different than how the signals, when they're operational at Windsor and Agricola, will work. So the bicycle phase at Roby is only provided when a cyclist is detected. And cyclists are detected by in-ground loops in the bikeway, in the asphalt, on the approach to the intersection in both directions. As a backup to that in-ground detection, we also have the push buttons at the intersection. Now, right now, when you push the button at the intersection, that little blue bike symbol lights up on the sign on the utility pole. That light is also meant to come on when bikes are detected by the in-ground loop. So that is currently a deficiency that needs to be corrected. But the loops are operational and they are triggering the bike phase. So the bike phase is coming on. So it provides a green light to cyclists when vehicle traffic on Almond, east and west, is stopped, so that you don't have any vehicles, any cars or trucks turning across the path of cyclists going east-west on the bike lanes. It's a new configuration for Halifax. We do have some information about it up on the website now, on the Almond Street Bikeway website. Once we have, there's a couple of other deficiencies with that signal set up right now. The timing, like the length of the bike's phase isn't quite right, and the position of the bike phase in the overall cycle is not right. Like so it's operational, but it's not exactly as intended. And but once it's all working as intended, we're going to be doing some education about how it works and why the phase is set up. The phasing is set up as it is. So I understand that there's like a bit of confusion from cyclists right now. Some people cycling are unhappy with having to wait for that separated bike phase. So the trade-off of having this separated bike phase is it does add some delay for cyclists. So I guess, does that answer your question? That's the status.
Okay, that makes sense. That's I figured it was just a new technology and it hadn't fully gotten figured out yet, so that confirms that.
But the green phase for cyclists is coming on. I mean, I've been through there many times now, kind of testing it out, and it's definitely working. So the green combined with the amber bicycle phase provides, a cyclist with enough time to safely get through the intersection without without having those interactions between turning vehicles.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Melinda, I think you had your hand up next.
Yeah. Just some what Addie was saying is Steve Taylor still in charge with all the traffic lights, or who's the head of what's happening with all traffic signals and audible pedestrian signals and bike signals?
I don't think Steve Taylor is with HRM at the moment. I think Glenn Pellerin is my contact in the signal shop for the technology side of things. And then it's the traffic. It's the traffic group that does the signal phase, planning. And then the signal, Glenn and his team, implement that.
All right. Would you mind sending me an email for that? Because that's why I've been wondering and what's happened, because there's some stuff that needs to be changed from that point. And I did have a second question, and just a quick comment. We did ask Brittany to provide, the reports, which we were noted with Mike Connors. That would be in the meeting ahead of time for the agenda for the committee that happens here, and we did ask for Brittany to be here just to answer a few questions not pertaining to the evaluator processes, but I know our chair and myself had some questions for Brittany. Is there any reason that she was not here that you're aware of?
Well, my understanding is that she was going to attend to give a presentation, and she doesn't have the data yet from the operator to complete, it's like to tell the full story about the data. So she rescheduled her presentation.
Yeah, but our question was going to be more pertaining to not the data, which I'm highly interested and invested in, because there's big problems. And but what permitted phase 2 to proceed if we don't have much data from phase 1? So putting extra. So that was the question that I would have liked answered, but I guess I'll email her personally. And last but not least, just because you're new here, so if you don't mind sending to the entire committee the answer to Alexi's question on Islesville and stop signs and all the rest. It would be greatly appreciated. Do you remember that? Did you jot that down?
Is that the protocol then? Is that
No, but I'm asking that it would be nice that once you get an answer that we are all informed.
Okay, sure.
Great.
I mean,
because there's a lot of committee members here who are living and using Islesville Street, and in the end, but I mean it's pertaining to everyone. So if we could get an answer sooner than later, that would be great, rather than having to wait and it being lost with everything else that goes on.
Alexi's question, Alexi, were you concerned about yield speeding and yielding on Agricola and Islesville north of Yonge?
I'm unmuted. Okay. I think it's less of an issue on Islesville, which I've noticed especially since the redesign in between Duffus and Yonge seems to have been a little quieter. I think there's just a general, like, it's definitely Agricola is a bigger issue. Like I said, I've almost been hit multiple times on Agricola just trying to cross the street. Yeah. And but I think there's generally like a big aversion on this part of drivers to actually do to actually yield at all in the area if they don't unless you're like really up in their face. And so I would love an answer. Like I think I'd asked this question last time too, which is just like, what is the strategy or rationale for decision making around where stop signs get put relative to, say, like a zebra crossing, or what, like basically what, like why wouldn't you have some sort of at least one or two stop signs, say, on Agricola for the strip here, or even for Isleville. I again, I no doubt there are probably some like traffic like studies that have or could be done that would indicate, like provide some indication, but um, I would just, I'd love to have an answer to that.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Roseanne, I'm waiting. See hand up.
Yeah, thanks. And as someone who lives on Agricola, I also would love to have answers to those questions about the stop signs. But I'd like to go back to the almond bike signals, and I'm happy to hear, Mark, that there's a plan to have some awareness around that. But I just want to reiterate that that's a perfect example of brand new technologies being put in. There isn't an integrated kind of communication plan. It's not sufficient just to put some information on the website. Frankly, I think cyclists are going to be very motivated to figure that out. I'm concerned about drivers not being aware of it and getting frustrated. And it's just one more piece of infrastructure that's in the city that hasn't been explained. And so, and it's not just those signals on almond, it's all of the new signals and signs and diversions that are existing now, that there hasn't been a coordinated communication process to drivers and pedestrians and folks coming into onto the peninsula, and it can be very disconcerting and very confusing. Intersections are completely changed. There's green painted lines and there's barriers, and there's been no real explanation about how you're supposed to maneuver through those intersections. So I really want to reiterate the need for a really integrated, comprehensive awareness campaign focused on all of us in this together and all of us navigating the city together as safely as possible, and doing it kind of piecemeal and introducing technologies that don't really work, but we're hoping they're going to work, doesn't add to a feeling of safety and comfort as people are trying to navigate that. So I really hope that this is being taken very seriously, that there will be a comms team, that there'll be an integrated approach, and that a lot of these new processes and ways of navigating the city, which are fantastic, happy to see them. But I think it does a real disservice to all the work that's been done around putting these in place when there hasn't been a way to talk to people about how they should be used and how they function as part of active transportation and traffic flow. It contributes, I think, to a feeling that it's not well coordinated, that it is that there are delays that shouldn't be there, and somehow it's active transportation's fault that those delays exist because there hasn't been communication. And we know those issues exist, and we know that people are frustrated, and I think we really need to think about how we're addressing those issues, and really kind of need to get ahead of some of these new pain points that are popping up. That's it for me. Thanks.
All right. So Mark, unless there was any responses you wanted to make, I think that it's like it's it for everyone, which is great. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you for. Oh, sorry. No, go for it.
Well, I fully agree. Communicating about these changes and how to navigate the new infrastructure is important. So it's on our radar. We do have a communications plan in place for the Almond Street Bikeway, and there's one in place for the Brunswick Street Bikeway. We're learning from the lessons at Almond Roby and the Almond Street Bikeway kind of in general, and trying to build on what we've learned to improve our comms for other projects. And we do have more general information about the different types of infrastructure in HRM on the website, and we need to build on that as new types of infrastructure kind of come online. But I definitely take the point. It's important to communicate these changes to all users. And we do work with our colleagues in corporate communications to do that. But we could do more.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Mark, for the update and taking the time to answer all our questions. Greatly appreciated. So we look forward to hearing from you in our next meeting. So we've got just 3 minutes left. So next up, we had added items. So I just wanted to raise one point here that I mentioned at the start, just because we have had some talk about sort of our connection to the Transportation Standing Committee, and there's been sort of talk of closing the loop. So I just took a few minutes to review the minutes from their last meeting. At one point just caught my attention. I'm sure all of you know the McDonald Bridge will be closed from this Friday 8 p.m. Until Monday 5:30 a.m. So it'll be closed all weekend to all traffic, including pedestrians and cyclists. But what was raised at the Transportation Committee, I think by Councillor Cleary, was the potential for giving AT users free ferry and bus tickets, which we can now pick up from the operations centre, the Harbour Bridge Operations Centre on the Dartmouth side. So I just wanted to raise this because I mean it could be good to share with their networks. It's exciting, they're actually considering AT users in this circumstance and providing other options. But just to highlight just a small point from the Transportation Standing Committee that sort of relates more to what we discuss here. And I just thought it was a great point that was raised and something that we could potentially be discussing within our committee and passing on to the Standing Committee as we've sort of discussed. But I won't go on about that. Sorry, Holly, you wanted to make a quick comment?
Yes, whenever they've closed the bridges to the bicycles, it's just automatically told to the people in the ferry terminal at the booths that bikes ride for free. Period. End of. No question. You don't have to ask for a ticket. They just ride for free. That's been the standard in the past anyway.
Thanks for sharing that. So I didn't know that. I just saw the comments from the minutes of the meeting, thought I'd raise it, but no, that makes sense. All right. Otherwise, that was it. So the date of our next meeting is the 16th of October, 2025. That brings us to the end of today's meeting. Would someone be willing to make a motion to adjourn?
Yep. I'll make the motion. Or I'll second it. Or it doesn't need to be seconded.
No second required.
Right.
Thank you.
We're all ready to go.
Yeah. So 6:29, that's perfect timing. Thank you so much, everyone. That brings an end to today's meeting of the Active Transportation Advisory Committee.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye.
Thanks, Aloe.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you later.